Well, I'm certainly not going to lie to you guys. I'm going to drive my truck all over the area out here that's been cleared out. I know it's got four-wheel drive. It's only a little tiny baby truck. But ultimately, I want to see how much of this land I can drive over before I start cutting down some of these little tiny trees. And I just noticed this camera's a little short. It's the one time in my life that I'm taller than the camera. But I want to share with you 4 very important things about any piece of property that's going to make sure you get the maximum value out of it. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. And I just noticed, got a little distracted there. I saw something through the woods. There we go. Look at that. My hands. Oh, look at this massive. Okay, here we go. Number one, access to the land. When you buy a piece of land, I want you to be able to walk that land day one. Now that might just be as easy as getting a little machete out and getting a little pole saw out and just kind of wandering through some trails. But you can also look on a map for your contours. But I want you to get that land access where you can get yourself a little side-by-side, or you can get yourself a horseback, or you can get yourself carrying a little cart so that you can access 100% of that property. Now, of course, every piece of property, there'll be areas of land that you don't need to access. So again, the access is more about surveying and understanding the property better. So even a foot trail is better than no trail. Number 2, I want you to map out all interesting characteristics, any interesting landmarks, piles of rocks, water sources, old building sites, big trees, certain types of trees. I want you to have a complete inventory of the property, okay? Why do we want to have a complete inventory? So for example, I'm seeing looks like an oil can over here on the ground. It's plastic, and it looks like maybe it might be antifreeze rather than oil. Why is that in the middle of a wooded area? Well, the wooded area is very thin trees, and it looks like they can't be any older than 5 years. So at one time, was this a clearing in the woods? Well, it possibly was, because the trees are not very old, and there's some mechanical types of garbage in the woods. So what does that tell me? It doesn't have to tell you anything if you're just surveying it. So you get access to the land, do some surveys, and just kind of gather that information up, because next you're going to have a plan. If you find you have water sources like a spring, if you found an old well, if you find an old home site, then you're going to save a lot of money, because you're not going to go ahead and put in a new well if there's already an existing well. If you have a well on the plats or anything like that, it's probably better to refurbish a well than it is to go get a new one. But again, it gives you an idea of where people used to get on the property. If you find out there's roads on the property, like this particular property here had actual roads that were cleared within the last 10 years, all I had to do is get a brush mower to clear them back out again, and I could drive a truck everywhere. So this is important stuff. It's part of that survey. But now what are we going to do with it? Number 3 is, what are we going to do with that survey information? Well, we're going to start putting it out on a map and get an idea of what we're going to do with that land. See, I have a magic power that I can share with you, and it's being able to take a garbage piece of land. See, you don't need the perfect piece of land for what you want to do, because I can turn the piece of land that you've got into the perfect land by understanding these characteristics we're talking about. Now, all these things go into a design plan, and if you're getting a permaculture design like what I provide my clients, the permaculture design is going to go into a little bit more details, but these are things you can start gathering about your property to get an idea of how to best utilize the property. And the best way to utilize a property is to help it further express what it already wants to express. So this wooded area here is very young trees. It's scrub brush. It is just brush. It wants to express a brushy, woody area. Now, I do see hardwoods coming up here, but it's going to be a good 30 years before these hardwoods would be worth anything. So selective cutting, in the sense of brush mowing the brush and leaving behind a few oak trees here and there, may be a way to turn this into timber down the line. But also, this area is kind of the highest part of the property, and while it's not that much higher over the rest of the property, it's actually very rocky ground. So it may be a better home site than it would be kind of a pasture or a wooded area in general. Now, these are rolling hills, so if I had larger animals back here, I don't really have to worry about them eroding too much. But there are low spots on the property that when you map out the low spots, they're a large percentage of the property. So if I was going to exclude cattle from possible creek beds or seasonal creek beds, then I don't have enough grazing area to be worth cattle. So I have to get a smaller type of animal. So what we've done is we got access to the land, we walked the land, we inventoried the different locations, we identified water sources, we came back in and opened up some of the land on these access points. Then we took all those features on a map, and then finally, number 4, we want to think about what can we do with this property. Again, you may have fixed in your mind an idea what you want to do with the property. Doesn't mean that's what the property wants. Okay? I might want to run cattle out here because I'm going to make more money on cattle. But then again, if I'm not able to produce quality cattle and I got to buy in a bunch of resources, I might put $2,000 into a finished animal and only get $1,400 at the market. Okay? We're not in the money losing business. We're in the money making business. And if it's not money we're making, it's one of the other 8 forms of capital. So that's really what we're about here. If I say money, I want you to think capital, and I want you to think about 8 forms of capital. If you have $3,200 into a cow and you get $1,400 at a market, you better have gotten other cows along the way, because the numbers are not right there. And if you're just measuring on money, then you're screwed. Now, if you're measuring beyond money into the education and knowledge and the value those cattle might have had being on the land, down the line, maybe you'll break even. But I don't want you to break even. I want you to have abundance. So the last thing is that plan. You're really going to start chopping out, and I've talked about plans before. You're going to say, look, I got a nice road over here, and so I don't need to build a new road. So can I put my barn off of that road? And if I'm going to put my barn off of that road, because there's a nice level spot to put a barn, that's where I want to have my animal enclosure. But if I'm going to put my animal enclosure there, can they easily get to paddocks? And if so, how many paddocks? If you put all this on paper, and you put it on a whiteboard and you draw it out, you put it on paper and you draw it out, and you come up with these different little plans, the plan for the rabbits, the plan for the chicken, the plan for the goats, and then how can you stack some of those plans? It's a permaculture ethic, is stacking a function. You're going to come up with a much better outcome than you would otherwise. And that's why I can come out here and just blaze out areas, big old clearings in the woods. There was not a tree in this area bigger than my forearm right here. Okay, there's no firewood in here. In fact, after seeing this done, I would not burn a piece of wood. If I got a piece of wood that's bigger than 5 inches, okay, bigger than this, I would not turn that into firewood. I would turn it into a post or a pole or 4x4 or something of value, because it takes so long for those things to grow. And so in this case here, this brushwood and stuff put about 5 inches of wood chip on the ground. Nothing in this thing was bigger than a forearm. And so that was the best approach for this. Now I got a couple standing trees that look really big and thick. But you know, watch my videos, look around. There isn't anything in here that's big. So you have a certain approach. But your land might be different. You might be walking that land and noticing how wide and open the woods are and how thick the trees are. And you might be saying, look, I got some hardwoods back here. And so now your access points are opened up with a forester. I'm starting to notice a little yellow jacket here, so I'm going to start getting on my little down count here. Did you see that? Did you see that? Thing gave me chills right there. So do you see where I'm coming from here? These paper plans are going to start testing ideas and concepts. You're going to start noticing, hey, I got access points here. This is where I need to put my building. I got certain sun angles. So you might have an elevation high in the front of the south of the property that casts a shadow on the whole back of the property. You're not going to grow gardens in a giant shadow from a hill. And you're not necessarily going to be able to shave that top of the hill off low enough that back is going to be good. You might actually have to push that hill back and then put your gardens up front and your animal grazing behind, or your orchards behind. These design features we can talk about, but if you don't have access to your land, able to walk the land and check it out, all the important points marked out so that we can kind of catch some features, because if it's an old home site, you kind of want to go where the old home site was or nearby. If there's an excluded area, such as a giant ditch that has erosion issues, you want to know about that and get that fixed up. If you get out here and find a dump, you know, I found equipment it's trash. It's old tires and stuff. I don't want to be building there. I certainly don't want to put a garden there. So can you see what we're talking about here? I want you to follow those 4 items. I want you to get out there and draw up some maps, even if they're just in a little notebook. I want you to start thinking about this, not thinking about the next YouTube video or about what you've got to learn or about what's the cool thing for people to be doing, or wouldn't it be nice to do such and such. I want you to get out there. Now, if you don't have a piece of land, you can start working on finding a piece of land, or at the property that you're at today, do the same exercise, 4 items, and start designing mobile units. So for example, let's say you live on 4 acres right now and you want to get 50 acres and you're not doing any of the things that you want to do until you get your 50 acres. That's wrong. You need to start a mobile chicken unit so that when you find the acreage that you want, you pick that up and take it with you. You need to have a market garden with a good fence around it so you can take the seeds with you, okay? You want to improve that land where you're at today so that you get maximum resale value of that particular piece of property so that you have a bigger down payment for the land that you want. Then if you go ahead and find a piece of land, you can use it for recreational purposes while you're operating closer to where you want to be from where you're at. You see where that works? Now, if you're in an apartment, you can pretend you've got a bigger farm by becoming a member of a community farm or some kind of cooperative, so you can start getting experience, but you can start setting aside the money that you would put out if you owned the property yourself. I would love to, you know, we do a lot of coaching and we do a lot of consulting, and I don't always have availability for that kind of thing. But if you're really serious about a homestead or a small farm, and you earned twice your average income for the area, because I'm not going to be able to do this for everybody. So you've got a high income, you're starting to move towards retirement, you've been in your peak earning years for a while and you want to retire and start that farm, we can sit down and start getting you in play now. Okay? It doesn't matter when you're watching this video if the economy's sucking and the food's hard to get and you know you're worried about inflation and stuff like that. Food costs are inflated quite a bit. That doesn't even matter, because you can start right now with a plan. If you have land, that plan is closer to fruition. But even if you don't have land, how can you start doing the things on the land that you've got? I've seen people who will go to a local farmer, buy bushels of vegetables so that they can can. I've done it myself, get the Roma tomatoes, can out tomatoes for sauces. Roma's great for sauce, a nice sturdy tomato there. And start practicing right now, because the truth of it is when you're doing this, it's way more work than you expect. It is so easy for you to sit here and watch those YouTube videos and enjoy the YouTube video and gain satisfaction from it and kind of live the dream in your head. And I know I'm asking you to put it on paper, to go walk the land, to go inventory and survey your land, and to write out some ideas and concepts based on how the land wants to express itself, and then finally start making little project plans for each of the different things you're going to do on the land. I know you'd like to be out here like I'm going to do here in about 10 minutes and just drive around until it gets dark and go home and get some sleep. Because what we're doing here is I'm testing concepts rather than dreaming about getting things done. So for a lot of you guys that have been contacting me directly about the coaching, I really am a plan-based thing, because I want to see results. I want to see you accomplish something. You're going to give me $2,500, you're going to give me $5,000 to do a design plan for your property. I want you to actually do something with your property. I want to save you $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. You know, to install a well could be $12,000 to install a well. Okay? What if you end up with a well that's nowhere near where your operations is going to be? Then you just blew $12,000 for no reason. And for some of you, that's all you got. Actually, I had some brochures, or I talked about some sheds and things. I'm looking at where I can put a nice little building here for rabbits and chickens, as well as tool storage. They would be big enough to pull the travel trailer up under the middle, or to store hay under. And that's why I'm driving the truck around. So I'm not just driving the truck around to have a good time. I'm driving around to test these things. What is my access? Based on the features of this land, where can I put a building that would allow me access for the animals, but also access later down the line if one wing of this building is used as goat shelter, that I can go ahead and run the goats out for pasture or under the woods. Also, my variances for property lines, like where are my property lines and where can my building be in relation to that? Will I need to level an area or take down any more trees? If I have to take them down, most of these trees are very tiny. I just get the forest mulcher back out. I know how much that costs each day. I really, it is hard work. It's much more work than it seems watching people on videos, but it's not impossible work. And it can be very satisfying work when you follow the 4 things that we talked about. I won't rehash that because I'm going to run the truck around. I'm just thinking about that. So I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I enjoy answering your questions. If I sound a little rude sometimes because I keep egging you forward to get something done instead of watching all the damn YouTube videos, it's because I've done the same thing. I've watched the natural farming videos like 8 times already. I'm usually folding laundry while I do it, so I guess I'm not really wasting time. But how many times do you need to watch something before you start doing it? It wasn't until I started doing it that I realized that that stuff works. It's just you got to work it, because you know how fast grass can grow pretty fast. I'm kind of going on tangents right now, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I will see you in the next video, which is fine. You're not going to watch anybody else's YouTube videos except for mine. And then you're going to ask questions, and I'm going to encourage you to get something accomplished, because every little accomplished, no matter how small, just that map of your property with the access routes, it'll pay for itself the first time you go out there to go hunting. It'll pay for yourself first time you go out there hiking with your kid. It'll pay for itself the next time you bring a friend over to the property to show them what you're going to do in the future, because you're not going to get lost. And then finally, you might even find some cool stuff back there, and it's just... It's getting that ball rolling in the direction that you want it to go, and I'm here to help you do that. My name is Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. Visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page and ask your questions. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And then this has been about the 4 things you do when you immediately get a piece of property, and I will see you in the next video.